Hello Jeep fans, I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. Without further wait, here's part 6 of my Godzilla Junior What If series. I hope you enjoy! The G-Force transport ship successfully arrived on Infant Island and retrieved Mothra's egg. While the ship is almost back to Japan, it's currently caught in a typhoon. Huge waves toss the transport around, causing the ship to become detached from the platform. Mothra's egg drifts into the sea as the ship attempts to make it back to Japan. The typhoon also rocks Monster Island. Harsh rains and winds batter the island. Lightning strikes in all directions. A lightning bolt strikes the restless ocean. One bolt strikes beneath the sea, hitting a hibernating Godzilla. Then all of a sudden more bolts strike him. Enraged, Godzilla quickly rises from his slumber. Now awoken, Godzilla lets out a loud, ferocious roar. After obliterating the Super X fleet, Mechagodzilla, Titanosaurus, and Megalon finish rampaging in Hiroshima. The monsters destroy everything in their paths, crushing building after building. Once finished laying waste to the area, Dr. Mifune and Torihata set a timer for 48 hours and have Mechagodzilla fly to Mount Fuji. Titanosaurus swims to Osaka Bay and Megalon burrows into the countryside near Nagoya. Once stationed in their positions, the monsters wait 48 hours until their next attack. Back in Okinawa, Dr. Mifune and Torihata inspect a new attachment designed to make Mechagodzilla even more powerful, just in case Godzilla arrives. With the storm over, General Lasso and Mickey wonder how Monster Island fared during the storm. They have Jet Jaguar prepped to inspect the area. Meanwhile, G-Force and the Navy head to the transport platform's last known location. However, they are destroyed by Mothra as she reaches Tokyo Bay. It's concluded that Mothra will be in the Bay Area within 8 hours. Surprised by Mothra's hostility, General Lasso decides to engage the larva against Mickey and the Cosmos pleas. Lasso thinks that this Mothra is a threat since she destroyed the Navy's ships. The Cosmos try to explain that Mothra is merely looking for food, but General Lasso orders the Air Force to slow Mothra down. Citizens are evacuated as the military gets into position to fight Mothra should she hit Tokyo. Meanwhile, Mothra picks up her pace and evades the Air Force and destroys the Navy, destroying ship after ship. Looking for food, Mothra arrives in Tokyo Bay and angrily swims towards the coast. Mothra makes it to land and crawls through the city streets. Explosions go off everywhere. Back in Okinawa, Dr. Mifune and Torihata receive an alert from the Mechagodzilla pilots that a Mothra larva is rampaging in Tokyo. Dr. Mifune and Torihata decide to surprise and weaken the military by having them spread thin across the mainland. They instruct Titanosaurus to attack Osaka and order Megalon to attack Nagoya. Mechagodzilla returns to base so they can load a controlling device for Mothra. Dr. Mifune and Torihata hope to add Mothra to their monster army. She will be useful for the next phase of our plan, where we destroy the rest of the world, the two men exclaim. It's decided that once Mechagodzilla is ready, he and the rest of the monsters will descend on Tokyo to kick off the next phase of their plan. As Mothra crushes buildings in Tokyo, Titanosaurus and Megalon begin rampages of their own. Titanosaurus erupts from Osaka Bay and enters the city and begins trampling buildings left and right. Titanosaurus roars as he opens up his tail, ready to generate huge gusts of winds. Meanwhile, Megalon burrows his way to Nagoya. Eventually, the monster makes it into the city. Megalon burrows through the city streets. Eventually, he erupts through a building and roars. Megalon walks through the city streets, destroying everything in his path. Back in Osaka, Titanosaurus destroys buildings left and right. Tearing apart everything in his way, Titanosaurus roars as he rampages. Megalon zaps buildings with his laser attack. Buildings explode left and right. Megalon fires a firebomb, destroying an entire city block. General Lasso gets word of the attacks and has the military move in to stop Megalon. He scraps Jet Jaguar's previous mission to Monster Island and orders him to head to Nagoya to fight Megalon. Seconds later, another alert goes off that Titanosaurus is rampaging in Osaka. General Lasso orders the last of the Super X fleet to Osaka to stop the monster. Meanwhile, the military is obliterated by Megalon and Titanosaurus. The monsters continue their rampage, destroying everything in sight. Eventually, Jet Jaguar and the Super X fleet arrive in their respective areas. Megalon looks at Jet Jaguar. He roars and then lunges at him. Titanosaurus roars at the Super X fleet and then gets his tail ready. Jet Jaguar and Megalon go back and forth fighting with one another. Megalon slams Jet Jaguar down to the ground. Jet Jaguar bounces back and pushes Megalon into a building. Meanwhile in Osaka, Titanosaurus' tailwinds toss the Super X fleet around. One crashes into a building, the others try to scatter around. Titanosaurus stops and charges one of the Super X's and body slams it into a building. General Lasso calls for military support, but there isn't much because they are already dealing with Mothra and Megalon. Back on Monster Island, Godzilla has cleared the area and regrouped with Rodan, Anguirus, and Manda. Sensing something is wrong, Godzilla decides to head out and see what's going on. The other monsters decide to investigate as well and follow Godzilla. As the monsters make their journey, Megalon seems to have Jet Jaguar on the ropes, tossing him into another building. Megalon moves in on Jet Jaguar and gets ready to use his firebomb attack until Jets swoop in and distract the monster. Jet Jaguar manages to get up and charges Megalon. Jet Jaguar pushes the monster around as the jets fire from above. After throwing each other into building after building and utterly destroying Nagoya, Jet Jaguar and Megalon take their fight into the countryside. Titanosaurus finishes the last of the Super X fleet and resumes his rampage rampage in Osaka. Titanosaurus destroys everything in his path, toppling buildings left and right. Back in the Nagoya countryside, Megalon fires his laser attack. Jet Jaguar dodges it. The military moves in and fires at Megalon. Megalon turns around and obliterates the tank with his laser. Meanwhile, Mothra's rampage has come to an end. Tired out, Mothra sets up a cocoon on the National Diet building. Dr. Mifune and Torahata launch Mechagodzilla, hoping he gets there in time for when Mothra hatches from her cocoon. They decide to have Titanosaurus and Megalon also make their way to Tokyo for the next phase of their plan. In the Nagoya countryside, Jet Jaguar gets behind Megalon and smashes him to the ground. Megalon is ordered to disengage and head to Tokyo. Megalon burrows underground, heading for Tokyo. Titanosaurus leaves Osaka and begins swimming to Tokyo Bay. General Lasso is stunned and has the Air Force follow both monsters to figure out where they are heading. Jet Jaguar is instructed to find Godzilla and the rest of the monsters on Monster Island. However, once on the island, it's discovered that the island has been cleared, but there are no signs of life. Meki says that she can still sense Godzilla, but faintly. General Lasso determines that perhaps the monsters are headed to Japan, and orders Jet Jaguar to scan the nearby seas. Meanwhile, back in Tokyo, Mothra hatches from her cocoon. Citizens watch in awe as the giant moth emerges and spreads her wings. Just then, Mechagodzilla arrives in the outskirts. Sensing this, Mothra leaves her cocoon and seeks him out. Mechagodzilla walks through the city, destroying everything in his path. He fires his Mega Buster, obliterating city block after city block. Missiles explode countless buildings. Mothra finds Mechagodzilla and engages. The two go back and forth. Mothra puts up a good fight. Megalon and Titanosaurus are ordered to assist Mechagodzilla. After some time, Titanosaurus makes it into Tokyo Bay and erupts from the water. Titanosaurus comes ashore and begins tearing through buildings on his way to Mechagodzilla and Mothra. With Mothra being so adversarial, Dr. Mifune and Torahata decide to kill the monster rather than control her. Mechagodzilla fires everything he's got at Mothra, but Mothra manages to dodge the attack and hides behind a building. Titanosaurus wades into the area, crushing everything. Megalon also moves into the area and erupts from the street and lets out a loud roar. Mechagodzilla, Titanosaurus, and Megalon regroup with each other. They then destroy the building Mothra is hiding behind and move in on her. Mothra uses her laser attack and fights back. Titanosaurus is smashed into a building. Megalon is stunned, but Mechagodzilla sustains no damage. The monsters regain themselves and move in on Mothra, firing their attacks at her. Meanwhile, Jet Jaguar finally locates Godzilla and the other monsters as they enter Tokyo Bay. General Lasso allows them to proceed and orders Jet Jaguar to lead the monsters of Mothra so they can take out Mechagodzilla, Megalon, and Titanosaurus. Godzilla, Anguirus, Rodan, and Manda are led by Jet Jaguar into Tokyo Bay, and then onto shore. The monsters roam through the streets of Tokyo, laying waste to the area. Godzilla crushes buildings as he makes his way into the heart of Tokyo. Meanwhile, Mothra is on the ropes and is shot out of the sky by Mechagodzilla. Mothra crashes down to the ground. The monsters get ready to attack and finish Mothra once and for all. Eventually, Godzilla and the monsters find Mechagodzilla, Mothra, Megalon, and Titanosaurus. Godzilla sees Mechagodzilla and roars. Shocked, Dr. Mifune and Torahata order their monsters to kill Godzilla and the others. The monsters all look at each other and roar. They charge at each other, ready for a massive fight. Godzilla and Anguirus take on Mechagodzilla, while Rodan, Jet Jaguar, and Manda take on Megalon and Titanosaurus. Mothra watches the battle as she recovers. Finally recovered, Mothra takes to the sky, ready to fight. Godzilla and Anguirus take turns attacking Mechagodzilla. The pilots decide to detach Mechagodzilla. One half drives around the surface, blasting the monsters, while the other flies in the sky and engages Rodan. Godzilla tail whips part of Mechagodzilla and sends it flying into a building. Godzilla and Anguirus close in on the downed half, but are quickly distracted by the flying half. Back in Okinawa, Mechagodzilla's attachment is ready. Modeled after the Garuda, the attachment leaves the base and heads to Tokyo. Meanwhile, Godzilla and Rodan fight the flying half of Mechagodzilla. Repaired, the second half heads underground to attack. Anguirus looks for the second half, only to be attacked as it erupts from underground. Rodan fires at the flying half multiple times. At first, the pilots are able to dodge the attacks, but eventually Rodan hits it a few times. The systems go haywire and it crashes into a building. Dr. Mifune and Torahata order the pilots to reassemble. Godzilla and Rodan fire their atomic breath at Megalon. Mothra stuns Titanosaurus as Anguirus gets ready to charge him. After beating up on Megalon and Titanosaurus for a bit, Mechagodzilla reassembles and his upgrade arrives. After transforming into Super Mechagodzilla, the pilots re-engage the monsters. Mechagodzilla attacks the monsters, freeing Megalon and Titanosaurus. Megalon burrows underground. Titanosaurus regains himself. Godzilla and Mechagodzilla fire their beam attacks. Mechagodzilla overpowers Godzilla. Godzilla falls to the ground. The pilots ready the shock cables. Megalon bursts from underground and knocks Anguirus and Jet Jaguar into a building. He tosses a firebomb at them. A huge explosion goes off, injuring Anguirus and Jet Jaguar. Megalon cheers. Scared, Manda stays back. Mothra moves in and attacks Megalon with her scales. Titanosaurus charges Mothra as Megalon falls to the ground. Anguirus and Jet Jaguar regain themselves as Rodan attacks Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla turns around and blasts Rodan out of the sky. Mechagodzilla moves away from Godzilla and closes in on Rodan and fires a plasma grenade. Rodan bleeds. Mechagodzilla returns to Godzilla and fires another plasma grenade. Then he fires his shock cables and begins shocking Godzilla. Godzilla wails in pain. Mothra rushes to help Godzilla. Anguirus checks on Rodan. Mechagodzilla blasts Mothra with his plasma grenade. She dodges the attack and knocks Mechagodzilla back. Mothra attacks Mechagodzilla. He crashes into a building, detaching the cables from Godzilla. Godzilla gets back up. Titanosaurus charges him. Godzilla tail whips Titanosaurus into a building. As Godzilla tail whipped Titanosaurus, he destroyed the monster's controlling device. Titanosaurus gets up. Confused and distracted, he begins running around frantically. Manda gets Titanosaurus' attention and manages to lead him to Tokyo Bay. Megalon tries to stop Manda, but Rodan fires his atomic breath at Megalon, getting his attention. Megalon fires his laser right back at Rodan. Rodan dodges it. Rodan rains his atomic breath from above. Megalon burrows underground. Anguirus tries to get him to resurface. Mechagodzilla gets back up and attacks Mothra and Godzilla. Godzilla and Mothra work together to overwhelm Mechagodzilla. Godzilla fires his atomic breath. Mothra uses her scales attack. Mechagodzilla's circuitry begins to spark as they get closer to Tokyo Bay. Megalon erupts from underground and bloodies Anguirus. Rodan fires his atomic breath again at Megalon. Megalon takes the sky and the two fire at each other. Eventually, Rodan gets behind Megalon and fires at him. Megalon crashes to the ground, in the process destroying his control chip. After regaining himself, Megalon frantically burrows underground. Rodan, Anguirus, and Jet Jaguar watch as Godzilla and Mothra battle with Mechagodzilla near Tokyo Bay. Godzilla knocks Mechagodzilla into the water. Mechagodzilla quickly gets back up and away from the water. He lures Godzilla and Mothra to him and then fires his plasma grenade. Godzilla tries to block Mothra, but the two get hit. Godzilla falls to the ground and so does Mothra. Mechagodzilla fires all of his weapons at Godzilla and then smashes him into a building. Godzilla gets tossed around by Mechagodzilla and thrown into Tokyo Bay. Godzilla regains himself and roars. Mechagodzilla fires his Mega Buster. Godzilla fires his atomic breath. Their beams collide. Mechagodzilla starts to overpower Godzilla until Mothra gets behind and uses her scales attack. His hull begins to melt again as Mothra uses her scale attack again. Godzilla fires his atomic breath. Mechagodzilla regains himself and pushes Mothra and Godzilla back. Mechagodzilla gets ready to fire all of his weapons again. Rodan distracts him as Anguirus gets ready to charge. Mechagodzilla begins firing all of his missiles at once. The monsters get back. Close to the water again, Mechagodzilla fires his weapons, pushing all the monsters away. Rodan, Anguirus, Jet Jaguar, and Mothra are smashed into buildings. Godzilla is tossed into Tokyo Bay again. After taking a bit to resurface, Godzilla erupts from Tokyo Bay. Godzilla and Mechagodzilla fire their beam attacks again. Godzilla overpowers Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla falls into a skyscraper, triggering a huge explosion. The power blasts Godzilla back underwater briefly. When Godzilla resurfaces, the dust and debris begins to settle. Godzilla tries to see if Mechagodzilla is still functioning. Godzilla blinks and sees a dark silhouette struggling to get up through the dust. As Mechagodzilla slowly starts to get up, Godzilla senses something and turns his head. Godzilla looks out at the rest of the city and sees a fleet of UFOs. Then out of nowhere, a monster similar to King Ghidorah flies in overhead and roars. The monster fires gravity beams similar to King Ghidorah and begins laying waste to what's left of Tokyo. Mothra, Rodan, Anguirus, Manda, Jet Jaguar, and Godzilla rise, ready to fight. The aliens destroy the surrounding area, exploding buildings left and right with their lasers. The UFOs bomb Tokyo Tower. The tower explodes and snaps in two. Jets and tanks roll in as Tokyo Tower falls to the ground. The UFOs instantly destroy the military. G-Force's maser equipment is also no match. Meanwhile, one of the UFOs makes a transmission to the mothership. An invasion report is given to the commander stating that the invasion is underway. The general also reports that Mecha King Ghidorah has been unleashed on Tokyo. Thrilled with the progress, the commander reports that another King Ghidorah is on its way from space to help with the invasion efforts. The general adds that Mechagodzilla has been teleported to the outpost in the Ogasawara Islands. Anyone inside will be neutralized and repairs will begin shortly, assures the general. Mid-conversation, the transmission is cut and the mothership loses connection. Godzilla blasts UFOs out of the sky with his atomic breath. He wades through the city streets, nearing Mecha King Ghidorah. Mothra, Rodan, and Manda get into position. Meanwhile, aliens teleport Megalon and Titanosaurus, who begin rampaging in the countryside. Anguirus and Jet Jaguar head out to the countryside to fight the monsters. Meanwhile, out on another alien outpost on Skull Island, something goes horribly wrong. The alien-captured experiment named Kong has just escaped. Kong escaped his holding cell and has been swimming away from the island. UFOs rush to stop the over 100-meter ape, but receive a transmission from the mothership to let Kong reach Japan and fight Godzilla.